USS Perch, a Porpoise-class submarine, was the first United States Navy vessel to bear the name Perch. Perch's keel was laid down on the 25th of February 1935 by the Electric Boat Company in Groton, Connecticut. She was launched on May 9, 1936, and commissioned on November 19, 1936. Following her shakedown in the North Atlantic Ocean, Perch joined Submarine Squadron 6, or Sub-RON 6, in November 1937, becoming part of the United States Pacific Fleet. The next spring, she took part in the annual fleet problem and contributed to a survey of the Aleutian Islands, entering the Bering Sea on February 28. In spring 1939, Perch joined the fleet on its cruise to the U.S. East Coast. In October 1939, Perch left San Diego, California, for Manila, where she became a division flagship and conducted a summer cruise in 1940 to Qingdao and Shanghai. She spent the year leading up to the Second World War operating in the waters around the Philippines. 1 week before the attack on Pearl Harbor, Perch met 2 transports off Shanghai and escorted the 4th Marine Regiment from China to the Philippines. When hostilities began on the 8th of December 1941, December 7th in Hawaii across the international date line, Perch, under the command of David A. Hurt, was at Cavite Navy Yard. She joined the hurried evacuation on December 10th and witnessed the Japanese bombing that devastated Cavite. That night, Perch slipped through the Corregidor minefields and patrolled between Luzon and Formosa in search of targets. Finding none, she moved to waters off Hong Kong, where on the night of December 25, 1941, she fired 4 torpedoes at a large merchant vessel, all of which missed. Days later, she hit a merchant ship, likely Nojima Maru, but Japanese escorts kept her from confirming the kill. Perch headed south to Darwin, Australia for repairs, making several unsuccessful attacks along the way. Her next patrol took her to Kendari, Celebes, where she reconnoitered the harbor and made repeated efforts to pass through the narrow entrance to reach an attack position. After a week of close contact with Japanese forces while gathering intelligence, Perch moved south in search of targets. During a night attack on a large merchant vessel off the eastern coast of Celebes, she was struck in the superstructure forward of the conning tower's pressure hull by a high-explosive shell that destroyed the bridge deck, damaged the antenna trunk, and temporarily disabled her radio. Her crew made nighttime repairs on deck in waters heavily patrolled by the Japanese, and Perch continued on to the Java Sea. On the evening of the 1st of March 1942, Perch surfaced approximately 30 nautical miles northwest of Surabaya, Java, intending to launch an attack on a Japanese convoy landing troops west of the city. But before she could approach her target, she unexpectedly encountered 2 Japanese destroyers, Minegumo and Natsugumo. Still running on the surface, Perch executed an emergency dive to avoid detection and initially appeared to succeed. She maneuvered into firing position, tracking the destroyers through the periscope and waiting for an opportunity to strike. However, a final check revealed that the enemy had detected her. Both ships were already preparing for a depth charge attack. Attempting to press an attack before being hit, Perch leveled off at around 90 feet, but it was too late. Minegumo and Natsugumo were already bearing down, unleashing a violent barrage of depth charges that shook the submarine and signaled the beginning of a deadly pursuit. The first pattern of depth charges missed, but a second wave of 4 struck Perch hard, causing significant damage. The pressure hull and part of the conning tower were dented inward. Several ventilation valves jammed shut. Heavy leaks developed through doors and gaskets, and nearly 90% of the ship's gauges and instruments were destroyed. Believing their target destroyed, Minegumo and Natsugumo moved on. Despite the damage, Perch maintained enough integrity to remain submerged, surfacing 2 hours later in the early morning of March 2nd to begin limping away for repairs. Upon surfacing, the crew found nearly every window shattered, both periscope tubes flooded, and only half the main engines functioning. Though badly battered, Perch had survived the assault and still pressed on, determined to continue hunting Japanese ships. As a result, just before sunrise 2 hours later, Perch was spotted once more, this time by the Japanese destroyers Ushio and Sazanami. The submarine dove quickly to 200 feet, but the effort came too late. Ushio and Sazanami launched a fresh depth charge attack, worsening the already severe damage. Perch tried to maneuver clear, but her crew soon discovered that the propulsion system was completely disabled. Helpless and motionless beneath the surface, Perch endured another wave of depth charges at dawn. The final barrage delivered the most devastating blows yet. Believing the submarine destroyed, Ushio and Sazanami eventually departed the area, convinced they had finished their target. Perch was forced to surface, and although she had already sustained serious damage from Minagumo and Natsugumo, Ushio and Sazanami had further crippled her. Upon breaking the surface, seawater flooded the pressure hull, while heat and humidity made the interior nearly uninhabitable. The submarine was dead in the water. Damage control teams managed to restore just one of the 4 engines, allowing a maximum speed of only 5 knots. A test dive was attempted, but it nearly caused the vessel to sink outright, revealing that Perch was no longer capable of submerged operation. She resurfaced for the final time, no longer able to escape beneath the waves. By the evening of March 3rd, the idea of scuttling Perch was raised, but the crew resisted, determined to get the crippled submarine to safety. As repairs continued on the damaged deck hatches, one sailor lit a cigar and the flickering light was spotted by Captain Tamichi Hara aboard the Japanese destroyer Amatsukaze. The destroyer quickly turned its guns on the submarine and opened fire. A barrage of 5-inch shells poured down as Amatsukaze closed in at 30 knots. At least 3 shells struck Perch, igniting fires on board. In response, Perch returned fire with her deck gun, reporting the attackers as 2 light cruisers and 3 destroyers. In reality, it was the light cruiser Jinsu leading the destroyers Amatsukaze, Hatsukaze, Yukikaze, and Tokitsukaze. Destroyer Yukikaze soon joined Amatsukaze in the assault on Perch. Rather than perish aboard a helpless vessel, the crew chose to abandon ship. As shells from both destroyers continued to slam into the submarine, the crew opened several hull valves in a final effort to scuttle her. One by one, the men jumped into the sea, and Perch made her last dive, slipping beneath the surface as the destroyers ceased fire. The next morning, Captain Hara assembled Amatsukaze's crew on deck to commend them for the kill, and due to the incident, banned smoking on board. Meanwhile, Perch's full crew of nearly 60 men had survived and were adrift when a Japanese destroyer found them. It was the same Ushio that had helped cripple Perch the day before. Ushio rescued the entire crew and transferred them to POW camps in the newly occupied Dutch East Indies. Aside from 5 who died from malnutrition, all the others made it home after VJ Day. Lieutenant Kenneth G. Schacht received the Navy Cross for his role in the scuttling of Perch, successfully preventing the Japanese from seizing classified code books, equipment, and sensitive materials. On November 23, 2006, Thanksgiving Day in the United States, the wreck of Perch was unexpectedly discovered by an international dive team aboard the MV Empress while searching for the British heavy cruiser HMS Exeter northwest of Bowean Island in the Java Sea. The expedition's original goal was to locate and photograph Exeter, which had been sunk in the same area on March 1, 1942. Sometime between 2006 and 2016, the wreck of Perch was illegally salvaged and is now considered lost. Unlike nearby Dutch and British vessels that were also illegally scavenged, Perch was not classified as a war grave, as her crew had abandoned ship without any loss of life.